This is the North American T-6 Texan, considered by many to be the finest training aircraft in the world. Whether you fly general aviation, or for the airlines, or even warbirds. The T-6 Texan will likely remain the most challenging and rewarding aircraft to master. So let me share in this video how the T-6 Texan changed me as a pilot. The first thing I noticed when I walked up to a T-6 was this great big beautiful Pratt & Whitney R1340 engine mounted on its nose. And when you couple this with a stout landing gear, the aircraft just oozes American muscle. With a wing as solid as a hardwood floor and a heavy canopy, this heavy metal feel carries you right into this cockpit. This isn't your general aviation airplane. These levers feel like they were taken right out of a large farm tractor. You got to get your mind out of general aviation and into a very physical mode, because this aircraft requires muscle to operate. However, my first impression was just a warm-up act, as I will never forget the first time I stepped on that starter. Experiencing this heavy, beautiful round engine slowly come to life was something that I knew we just had to Accu-Sim. So let me now show you how Accu-Sim has captured the magic of this beautiful Pratt & Whitney R1340 engine. I am proud to introduce the Accu-Sim T-6 Texan. You're looking at a recreation of the actual T-6 we trained on in Waukegan, Illinois. And here you have the T-6 in polished aluminum. And our own Marcelo da Silva made this beautiful Brazilian skin of his own choosing. And we salute the British with this Harvard paint. And finally, the award-winning Pamela Marie, owned and operated by Andrew McKenna. So let's take a peek into the legendary T-6 Texan cockpit. And being a trainer, you can fly from a complete and fully functional rear cockpit. It's a very different experience to fly the T-6 from the back. You have very little visibility in front, so you have to use a lot of peripheral vision to fly this thing. Now, just like the real thing, before we go flying, we remove the pitot cover, the oil clean kit, and the chocks, which are all functional. And Accu-Sim also supports hand turning of the prop. This ensures that those lower cylinders are clear of oil. Okay, before we start, we select the tank with the most fuel. And since the plane has been sitting for a while, there's no pressure in the fuel system, we can use our manual fuel pump just to prime the system a little bit. And with a cold engine, the T-6 that we flew liked about 5 strokes of the primer. Here's the starter foot pedal in the middle, brakes on, and press down the starter. Now watch how this engine slowly comes to life. And there we go. Now what you saw there was a fully dynamic startup. So now, we just idle the aircraft until the oil temperature comes up to about 40 degrees Celsius. And here's the view from the pilot sitting in the back. You can see by looking at those frames exactly how this engine is shaking this aircraft. Now in the T-6, the moment you start taxiing, things start to get even more interesting. Don't let the solid build of the T-6 mistake itself for stability when on the ground. This T-6 requires a pilot's full attention when taxiing. Now, on the subject of taxiing, we've had quite a breakthrough with Accu-Sim. We have modeled both the steerable and the free castering tail wheel on this T-6. Now when the stick is neutral or full back, the tail wheel is steerable, which makes it nice and easy to taxi. But you can push the stick forward, unlocking the tail wheel. And with just a little power and rudder, you can swing the tail around. Apply the outside brake, and the turning stops. I know this might sound strange, but just taxiing the T6 is almost as fun as flying it, because it's challenging. And once you master the system, you have a tremendous feeling of freedom while on the ground. And the T6 is beautiful to look at, whether on the ground or in the air. The final thing before we go flying: when you're taxiing a tail dragger with a big engine like a T6, you need to use S-turns to see in front of you. And the T6's steerable tail wheel makes this very natural and easy to do. Now for takeoff, let's compare Accu-Sim to the real thing, side by side. We hold the brakes and we slowly add power until we get to about 30 inches, which should be 2,000 RPM. We release the brakes and a little more throttle to 32 inches. Okay, and now we do our rudder pedal dance, keeping that nose on the center line. There we go. And the nose slowly comes down. Let the speed increase. And rotate. Positive climb, gear up. And as the gear comes up, we hold our power. And now we bring it back to about 30 inches. Then the propeller comes back to 2,000 RPM. And that's how I was trained to take off in the real T6, and that's exactly how you can take off when flying with Accu-Sim. Now that we've taken off, we pull the power back to 25 inches and set the RPM at 1850. And if we pitch for 110 miles per hour indicated, we get a by-the-book 500 foot per minute climb. As expected, we tested various cruise powers. Here you can see a very comfortable and conservative 24 inches and 1850 RPM, giving approximately 140 miles per hour indicated.
I'll be right behind you. Go ahead.
And during our testing, we did a lot of aerobatics. A2A's Captain Jake had a go at the controls.
There you go.
And our own Robert Rogalski came over to the United States from Poland to fly the T6.
Very nice.
Another Accu-Sim first is you can actually snap roll the T6. A snap roll is basically an induced spin. At around 120 miles per hour or less, you pull back hard on the stick and give it full rudder. It takes a lot of practice to do a snap roll and come out in a level attitude. Just 1/10 of a second can be the difference of coming out a little early or a little late. You can even do an inverted snap, which is actually a little easier to recover from. And if you're really up for a challenge, you could try a hammerhead. There are many more unique qualities to this T6 that we have reproduced with an Accu-Sim. First, the stall warning is very subtle. Watch carefully as I take this hard left turn. You see that? If I don't let up on the stick right away, that wing will snap. Let me show you. Now on a hard left turn, that right wing will drop very fast almost every time. But on a right turn, you can work those rudders and hold it in the turn almost indefinitely.
You're controlling it really nicely with the rudder.
And when you're done with your aerobatics and on your way home, the T6 can be a comfortable and fast IFR platform. Here we are measuring the effects of the supercharger at high altitude. And our T6 comes with built-in support from many third-party GPSs. We even have an optional autopilot. And on our way back, let me show you an example of the physical sound of this aircraft. Even just the little things like this are just so immersive. And after all of this flying, your biggest challenge awaits: landing. Visual gear down confirmation. Hydraulic flaps. And there are 3 flaps on the T6. One actually is underneath the fuselage. Now, it's very easy to shoot and approach with the T6 because the aircraft is stable, the flaps are effective, and the engine has tremendous influence over the aircraft. Now, here we are a little bit high in our approach. Now, watch as I pull the throttle back. The nose drops and the speed drops, which means we're coming down fast and like a rock. And that's nice that the throttle gives you a wide range of control. As you can see, we're slowing down pretty fast. I'm going to add some throttle because now we're going a little too slow. So I'm bringing it up to about 25 inches. And you can see that speed is coming right back. We're already at 100 miles per hour. So we bring that throttle a bit back. And we are establishing a nice descent. Now the key here is you want to watch your speed. At about 90 miles an hour, it's a nice speed to come over the threshold. Now I'm going to weave just a little bit here. I don't want to make a perfect landing. I want you to see the physics. Now watch. Now, even though we're in a 3-point attitude, I'm going to bring the tail up because I'm going to show you some of these ground physics. You see, with forward stick, we can hold our tail up even at a moderate speed. Now, I'm just going to give a little bit of left brake. You see, this thing wants to ground loop. And look, I'm putting full right rudder. And you can actually hear the tires cutting into the pavement a little bit. We spent so much time to make these ground physics really speak to you. Here's another landing with a little bit of a weave. Now watch. And what we're doing is we're pushing forward on the stick. We're keeping that tail high to maintain control. Both the real and the Accu-Sim T6 are so challenging and fun to land. And let's finish up with a nice gentle touchdown. Okay, stick forward, get that tail up in the air, and hold it there. Hold that tail up. And if you have the runway, just let the aerodynamic braking slow the aircraft down. And as we slow down, the rudder will become less effective, and the aircraft can become difficult to control. So we'll gently bring the tail down. There we go. And we want to plant the tail on the ground and hold it there with the elevator. Well, this video barely scratches the surface of what it's like to own and operate the Accu-Sim T6 Texan. The T6 Texan is an aviation icon. It's given so many pilots the wonder and challenge to be the very best they can be. And now, the incredible team at A2A Simulations has the honor of bringing this legendary aircraft into the amazing world of Accu-Sim. The North American T6 Texan is one of the world's most exciting and successful aircraft of all time.